The respiratory system. The respiratory system is split up into two parts, the upper respiratory tract and the lower respiratory tract. Air begins its journey through the respiratory system in the upper respiratory tract, either through the nostrils and the nasal passage or the mouth. The main job performed here is the cleaning, warming, and moistening of the air coming into our systems, done with the help of mucus and ciliated cells. After the mouth is the pharynx. The pharynx is commonly known as the throat, and this is the shared passageway for the air coming into our respiratory system, as well as the food and water that we are eating and drinking that's on its way to our digestive system. Just after the pharynx is the epiglottis. This is a flap of cartilage that lies behind the tongue but in front of the larynx. It closes over the opening to the trachea when a person swallows so that the food and water does not go down our trachea. After the epiglottis is the larynx, which is more commonly known as the voice box. It's made up of cartilage, and this is where the vocal cords are. After the larynx is the trachea. This is also known as the windpipe. The trachea is a flexible tube strengthened by semicircular rings of cartilage so that it doesn't collapse as the air passes through from the larynx and on into our bronchi. Bronchus is two smaller passageways from the trachea that goes into the right and left lungs. The singular way of saying bronchus is bronchi. Next is the bronchioles. Think of it like a tree where the trachea is the trunk, and then it branches off into the bronchus and then the bronchioles. These are finer and smaller tubes. These carry the oxygen into tiny air clusters called alveoli, like leaves at the end of the branches. The pleural membrane is a thin, double-layered membrane that surrounds the lung. The outer layer is attached to the chest, and the inner layer is attached to the lungs, and they are adhered together by a layer of water. This adhesion allows for the lungs to expand and contract with the muscle movement, and prevents the damage from friction. Then we have the alveoli. The alveoli, as we said before, are like the leaves in the trees. This is where gas exchange occurs. This is the site of external respiration. They look like tiny sacs, and they're covered with capillaries, so that the gas exchange can happen with the blood. Now there are two muscles in the respiratory system, one being the diaphragm, shown here in blue, and the other is the intercostal muscles, which are not shown here. The muscles expand and contract to control the volume of the lungs with the help of the pleural membrane. Then of course there's the main organ of the lungs, which we all know to be the lungs. The principal function is to transport oxygen from the atmosphere into the bloodstream and carbon dioxide from the bloodstream out into the atmosphere. The lungs include the bronchioles and the alveoli. Now there are four stages of respiration: inspiration, expiration, which is the air in and out of lungs; external, which is air in and out of the blood; internal, air in and out of cells; and of course cellular respiration, how the body cells use the air once it's there. Inspiration, expiration, also known as inhalation and exhalation, is the first stage. Inspiration begins when the intercostal muscles contract and move up and out, while the diaphragm contracts and moves down. This causes an increase in the volume, causing the air to flow into the lungs. Expiration occurs when the intercostal muscles relax down and into the chest, and the diaphragm relaxes upwards, decreasing the volume of the lungs, causing the air to flow out. Note in this clip, as the chest expands, volume increases, and relaxes, volume decreases. External respiration takes place in the lungs. During external respiration, oxygen flows from the alveoli into the blood, and carbon dioxide flows from the blood back to the alveoli. Internal respiration occurs in the capillaries, between the capillaries and the body cells. Oxygen flows from the blood into the body cells. Carbon dioxide flows from the body cells back into the blood. Then we have cellular respiration, which is how our body cells make use of the oxygen once it's there. The respiratory system has a role in homeostasis by maintaining gas levels. By always bringing oxygen into our body and always removing the carbon dioxide, we always have a constant level of each. This is important because although too much oxygen isn't bad, too much carbon dioxide is. When it comes to respiratory health, we chose to do COPD, which is a type of chronic obstructive lung disease characterized by poor airflow. It usually worsens over time and is usually seen with coughing, shortness of breath, mucus being coughed up from the lower respiratory tract. Most people are familiar with COPD in the form of chronic bronchitis and emphysema. The most common causes is tobacco smoking, but there are other causes including genetics, environmental exposure, and air pollution.